You probably already saw the title for this video, so you know that I'm talking about a big mistake that I've made recently in publishing. I've actually made a lot of mistakes. I did this video all about that, and I'm probably gonna make a lot more. And I don't think that's anything, first of all, that you should be ashamed of, but I wanted to share this particular one that I made. It's kind of a layered mistake. So the top layer, just to get it right out there, is that I rushed things. Now, I wouldn't say that that is a mistake all by itself, but what it often does is it leads to making bad choices and making other mistakes, which is exactly what happened. In this case, I made a book right here that should have been done differently. Now, don't get me wrong. I love this book. I'm very proud of this book, but if I could go back in time, there are definitely some things that I would do very different. So let's back up and let me explain exactly what happened. The story of this book actually technically began all the way back in 2020. I was asked by Jessica Brody to do a course with her and the Writing Mastery Academy on self-publishing, and that was taking place behind the scenes all throughout 2021. And the reason that this is relevant is because this book actually began initially as an idea of something we could do specifically for the course. So the idea was, hey, if we're self-publishing, can we actually show ourselves publishing a book live and go through all the steps in the course on an actual book? And so then it was like, well, what book should we use? You know, something from the public domain, something that we already have, and like republish it. That was weird too. And then it was like, well, what about a story that hasn't been published yet, but that would be easy to write, like a short story? So we were just spitballing, going through possibilities. But as soon as we started talking about Jezebel's story, I was like, yeah, I could write like a 5,000 word short story, and that would be super easy. And I started getting excited. Now fast forward to the course today, and it actually uses The Stolen Kingdom, which is the first book in my young adult series of fairy tale retellings. And so this just felt like a better fit for the course. We were like, you know what, everything's already done. We don't have to, slow down to do every step and publish a book along with publishing a course. So we ended up using this one, but by then I had the idea in my head and I couldn't let it go. So I think it was either April or May of 2021 that I started to outline this story. I was like, okay, I think it'll just still be a short story. I can use it for my author newsletter as an opt-in, right? Something fun to be like, hey, do you want a sample of my writing? Here's something cool that you can read to get to know the world. And it's just like a little spin-off, as they call it. Fast forward to, I don't know, I want to say the next month, whenever I finished writing it, I had 15,000 words, and half of that was just in outline format. By the time I finished drafting this book, it was 31,000 words. So it was no longer that short story. I remember filming this video about short stories, and at the time I was like, 30,000 words is still kind of a short story, right? It's like just under novel length. And eventually I started calling it, as you can see here, a novella. I was like, well, that's technically what it is, right? And that is what I would consider my next like layer of the mistake. I feel like this is the first actual mistake. Again, rushing is not a mistake all by itself. It just tends to lead to making other mistakes. So the first mistake that I made without even realizing it was to create a novella instead of a novel. And the reason this is a mistake is because it turns out novellas are really hard to market. It's a lot harder to get readers interested in them. It's a lot harder to convince readers that this is a full story. Like, she has a very powerful arc. This is one of my favorite books that I've ever written. Just because it's short doesn't mean it's not good. But readers, especially in young adult, I feel like these days, a young adult fantasy in particular, really expect a chunky book. Like, the average word count is somewhere between, I'd say like 70,000 to 80,000. And then for fantasy, it can go upwards like 90,000, maybe even a little more. And this, again, is 31,000 words. It's not just a couple pages, obviously. It's a thick story compared to what I thought it was going to be. It's like 6 times larger than I thought it would be. But for my genre, my audience, and my readers' expectations, this book would be considered too short. And that leads to what I'm going to call like the last layer, or my second official mistake, which is that the rushing, again, led to my not getting enough feedback and not realizing that it was too short until it was too late because I was about to have a baby. So if you guys don't know, I have sweet little Zion. He is now 7, almost 8 months old. But back in 2021, I was like, I don't know what life's going to be like after a baby. I don't know if I'm going to work at all. I had a lot of fears about that. It's definitely gotten slower. So some of those fears were valid. I wouldn't change it for anything. Just putting that out there. But I called it the deadline of my life because I was like, this is the time to get as many books out and finish as many projects and do as many of the things that I've been wanting to do as possible before Zion gets here, and I can't necessarily work at the same speed anymore. So I set a publishing date for this guy in September of 2021. That's right, 4 months after I started writing it. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever published any of my other novels this quickly. The Ginny Key technically had a 3-month pre-order, but I had written the first draft a few months back before that, so maybe it's roughly the same as the Ginny Key, but it did help that it was shorter because the upside to having a shorter book is that everything takes about half as long as it would with a book twice the size. So with beta readers, it was like a 2-week process and then they were done. And my editing rounds would be like 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks, and then I was on to the next round of edits and I'd send it to my critique partners, and proofreading didn't take as long because again, the shorter the book, the less time it takes. So it did definitely make things go faster, which meant that weirdly enough, the release didn't feel rushed until I'd say probably 1 or 2 weeks before the release when the ARC reviews started coming in. And maybe even you could go further back to my beta readers reviews, but that was only, like I said, a month or 2 before release. Like it was too late to make changes because I'd set a release date, but I should have listened to that feedback and I should have gotten more feedback because everybody was saying, I think there's more to this story. I think there's more. I want more of this. I want more of the prince. I would love to see more of her shapeshifting. I would love to see more. And so if I hadn't rushed things, what I would have done is I would have been able to listen to that feedback, go and do another round of edits and just add to the story, add more and more layers to who Jezebel is. But more importantly, I guess the bottom layer after we've dug through all these layers and choices that led to where this book ended up being is that I would have realized from my readers' feedback that this was not a standalone, a little tiny spin-off, but actually an entire companion series all its own. Because Jezebel's story, as I was beginning to realize from feedback and the reviews, like the week leading up to release and the weeks after, has so much more to it. And so I did go back and I talked to my beta readers and I was like, hey guys, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you sooner. I'm realizing that Jezebel has a lot more to her story. What are some things that you want to know? And I very quickly realized there was not just 1 more book, but 2 more books, and that Jezebel needed a trilogy. So the second book, The Secret Shadow, is going to really hone in on a different secret that she has. And then the third and final book in the series is my current favorite because it's actually going to show what happened with the Atazadeh that we see in The Cursed Hunter when we meet Nesrin and we hear her story of how her people were cursed way back. And we learn some snippets in this book of how there was a curse that happened to her people. And so many of you were like, I want more of Nesrin's story. I want to know about this curse. Well, actually, it's going to end up happening in Jezebel's book, in book 3. And it's going to be so good. I can't wait. So that leads to my favorite part of this video, which is the changes I'm going to make. Because when you realize that you made a mistake, you don't just have to sit in it, right? You can actually do something about it and change things. So I have so many exciting changes. I've got my notes here. The first one I've kind of already revealed is that this is now going to be a series. There's going to be 3 books. So I do have the titles for them. I've written the first draft of the second book, and I'm currently writing the first draft of book 3. The second big change, now that this is no longer a standalone spin-off of the Stolen Kingdom series, is that this is going to get its own series cover. It's going to get a brand new cover, and the other 2 books are going to get covers to match. So it's going to have a series set of covers, and it's going to be really special. It's already done. I'm really excited to share it with you guys. It's gorgeous. So keep an eye out for a cover reveal that's going to be coming up fairly soon. But then you remember how I said the other mistake I made was that this is not a full-length novel. Not quite. It's really close. So I am planning to add about 10,000 words, maybe more if I'm inspired, but about 10,000 more words is going to make this a full-length novel, which is going to have a few benefits. It'll look like a novel. It'll be more exciting to you guys simply because it's a novel, and you'll see it as a legitimate story simply because it's a novel. Number 2, it's going to make the second edition with the brand new cover way more exciting with all this new material inside. It's actually going to be something worth buying again and reading again, because it won't just be the same book on the inside. It'll actually have a ton of new stuff on the inside as well. And I will show you in a second all the stuff that I'm planning to add, because I'm about to actually start writing those bonus scenes and just revise the whole thing as well and give it a once over and, you know, see if I can add another fun little Easter eggs. So I will share that in a second. But before I do, the last reason that it's really valuable actually to turn this into novel length is for BookBub and other promo and deal sites. So I've done this video about BookBub. I'll link it below if you're curious, but essentially one of the requirements to promote a book on BookBub and other similar newsletter sites is that the book needs to be at least 150 pages as an ebook. Now, this one is technically, I think it's 177, I think, but that's the physical copy. The ebooks tend to be a little bit smaller because they're formatted different. And so making the book bigger will also help me to be able to do quite a bit more marketing opportunities. And the reason that's way more valuable to me now than it was in the past is because now it's a book one in a series. So if I discount book one for a BookBub promotion, say a year from now or something like that, when the other books are already out, then people will go on to buy the other books and it becomes really valuable. And that's a whole side thing. Again, watch the video about BookBub if you want to know more about that. But now, let me show you my first page here. These are my notes for all the changes that I want to make. All right, it's later in the day, but I just wanted to come back. I was sitting here playing with sweet little Zion, and it just hit me that there was technically a third mistake. I don't even think I fully realized it until I was working on these bonus scenes, and I recently asked on Instagram, prepping to write these bonus scenes, any requests, you know? And I was also talking to my critique partner, and I was working on the blurbs, and at some point in this process, I think it was when talking to my writing friends, that they were helping me realize there's not a lot of fairy tale retelling elements in these stories. I think it was when I was writing the blurb and I was saying these are inspired by the evil queen in Snow White, the evil fairy in Sleeping Beauty, and the evil, I think also fairy, in Beauty and the Beast, because that is who inspired Jezebel's character in the Stolen Kingdom series, which have the fairy tale retellings, not the Snow White, but they have Sleeping Beauty and the Beauty and the Beast retelling. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, just because she's the villain and there's not a whole lot to go on doesn't mean I can't put some fun Easter eggs and retelling elements in it, right? So I'm not calling these outright retellings. They're more inspired by the fairy tales. It just hit me that that would technically be a mistake as well, because I was sort of accidentally leaving the genre that my readers enjoy and the genre where I kind of established myself and my books. And so yeah, that's something that I want to fix. I want to stay in the young adult fantasy fairy tale retelling genre. So let me go back to that list that I was about to share, and I will share some of the specific fairy tale retelling elements that I want to add because of that. This is definitely not a retelling in the way that these were, because this is a villain origin story. And so I would consider it more inspired by your favorite villains in Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Beauty and the Beast, because that's what Jezebel was in these stories right here. Those three villains don't actually have a lot. I don't feel like they have enough in the original tellings to actually call it a retelling, but I am going to bring in a ton of Easter eggs. So my goal is to play up some mirror scenes for Mirror Mirror on the Wall, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to play up some of that jealousy and comparison that she has with her friends. I want to find a way to compare and contrast how she shapeshifts with the way that the evil queen and Snow White shapeshifted into a hag. I want to see if I can bring in the apple and just other fun Easter eggs of the fairy tales in all three books. So the first one, I want to bring in some Easter eggs with the Snow White evil queen. The second book, there's going to be some Easter eggs with the Sleeping Beauty evil fairy. And then the third book, I'm going to put in a lot of fun Easter eggs that go along with the, again, evil fairy in Beauty and the Beast, such as the curse that the title, The Secret Curse, kind of hints at. But beyond that, I'm actually going to expand on the ending and create a bonus scene on the end. I'm going to have a very full bonus scene of something that happened off the page with Jezebel's father. I'm considering adding the prince in way earlier on in the story, maybe some scenes there, and some more scenes with one of her friends in particular, or maybe all of them. And that's all I can really hint at without, you know, spoilers. So I hope that sounds interesting to you and gets you excited for what the second edition is gonna have. But the last and most important thing that I want you guys to hold me to is that I don't want to rush this time. So even though I technically have the book written and I have a cover pretty much done, I think it'll be done in the next week or so, and I'll be sharing it with my patrons like right away because I'm so excited to share it. Even though I have that and I could technically, you know, republish the second edition like next month, the reason that I'm not going to do that is because, like I said, I need to take things slower. So I don't know how it's going to go with book 2 and book 3. I know that I want to rapid release them, meaning within like 3-ish months, maybe 2, maybe 4, but somewhere in that range. I want them to come out fairly quickly in order. And to do that, I need to have them quite a bit more done than I used to in the past because, like I said, I don't have a lot of time. That was like perfect timing, just to give you an exclamation point on that. Little dude is up, so I have to go get him, but that's just the perfect example of how I don't think I can write at the same speed and edit at the same speed and work with beta readers and, you know, set up the publishing and all of that at the same speed that I used to. So my plan is to instead get through all of those stages at whatever speed that I can and just kind of like see how it goes, figure it out as I go. Then once the books are way closer to done, that's when I will set a release date and an actual deadline, because once it's set, I want to honor it. I want to make sure I get these books out to you guys. So my thought is right now, the earliest is probably going to be September, and that's a very ambitious goal. It's not very likely. And then the latest, kind of the more likely dates, is either a December release or a January release. So somewhere in that time frame, you are going to start to see stuff from me and a cover reveal and these books starting to come out. The last thing I want to say before I go is please add these books on Goodreads and support me as an author. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And by the way, I will have uploaded the actual blurbs of what the story is about to Goodreads by the time you see this video. So definitely make sure you go click the link below so you can go read what those 2 stories are about also. I'll link my page below so you can go see all my books and you can just click want to read. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance. Thank you. Let me know what you think of my upcoming plans in the comments. I hope you're excited. I can't wait for you to read these books. It's gonna be so good. All right, I better go. So I will talk to you guys again very soon. Bye. This is the week that I'm going to be writing the bonus scenes for The Secret Gift. I'm hoping to add actually as much as maybe 10,000 words or more. Just changed up my office space. I think we need the guest bed to get out of Zion's room, so I was moving it over into my office, and to do that I had to move the desk that was in my office out into the front room or whatever you want to call this.